Good morning, everyone. I hope we all had a Thanksgiving that was lovely with family and friends, and that now we're ready to get back to healthy eating, aren't we? We are delighted to welcome you back in the sanctuary, and as well as those of you at home on Zoom, to the hybrid gathering of Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Sunday service. We're delighted to welcome back Robin Mitchell to our pulpit. She did a Zoom service. Are you waving at me?
No.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to do something different. Okay. Okay, back to welcoming Robin Mitchell to the pulpit. She's a frequent UU speaker with a fascinating perspective, drawing on her experiences of other religions to provide insights into our UU faith. Robin is a member of the UU Fellowship of San Dieguito in Solana Beach, as well as her local Methodist church. She is also a Buddhist practitioner. So we are happy to see her again, and we welcome her very busy but peaceful mind. We are recording today's service, and we'll turn it off for our community gathering after the service. And now let us turn our hearts and minds to our musical prelude.
Good morning, everyone. I will play Come Ye Thankful People Come, arranged by Mark Hayes.
Thank you, Karen. So Summit UU Fellowship is a spiritual community deeply committed to the shared values of love and inclusion. We have no specific Unitarian dogma. However, we do aspire to the principles and purposes listed at the end of the order of service. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. We do want to acknowledge that the land upon which we reside is unceded and part of the long legacy of the Kumeyaay people. The spiritual traditions and enduring sovereignty of the Kumeyaay are the first that we acknowledge from this land. We also aspire to act here upon our UU principles and traditions of peace and justice, as we recognize the violent history of colonization in California. We honor the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. Did we have any announcements? No one said we did. I'm just checking. One, okay, come on up.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, I'm Serafina Galante. I'm speaking on behalf of the Social Justice in Action Committee today, which is sponsoring, again, a holiday project to sponsor a family from Crisis House. Crisis House is a local nonprofit, and the family is a family of 4. Our Christmas tree is up and well, beautifully decorated. And between now and next Sunday, we hope that people will come by and bring gift certificates. Is that correct? Crisis House adopt a family. Please bring a Target or Walmart gift card by December 4th. Next week. Yay. Okay. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Seraphia. Now, we will be doing our chalice lighting, and Robin is going to read the first stanza, and then I will read the second.
We are keepers of hope, holders of memory, storytellers and song weavers, pulling on this thread of truth, this other march of history that might otherwise fail to find its footing. That life is filled with kindness, bold beauty, courageous compassion, sacrifice for the common good, and a wide willingness to embrace neighbors and strangers as kin.
We are here to do the work of hope, remembering the past, remembering ourselves, imagining our most possible future for this life that teeters too often on the edge of forgetting. We belong to each other. Bring all you are, every shadow, every light, every hope, every fear for this radiant hour. Come, let us hope for each other. Come, let us worship together. Now, please stand if you are able, and Pierre will come over and lead us in the Spanish and then the English version of our UU hymn.
Que todos bajo el gran sol, su esperanza, fe, amor, verdad y belleza cantando de cada tierra, cada voz. From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and
Thank you, Pierre. He even sounds good in his mess. Please be seated. Okay, so we are going to now have our reading from Robin, and then we will be welcoming Mary. Oh, I forgot the aspiration. Thank you. All right, thank you, guys. May love be the source. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to offer in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Thank you very much. And now she will do her reading.
Our reading this morning comes from the Unitarian Church of All Souls in New York City, home of both Herman Melville and Forest Church. We are a religious community. In the experience of worship, we gather to contemplate the mystery of God, interpret the wisdom of religion, and explore the insights of science. Our purpose is to awaken our sense of the sacred and renew our resolve to transform ourselves and the world. As human beings, we all emerge from the same source and share the same destiny. As a community of faith, we make shared commitments and offer mutual support. As individuals, we each bear responsibility for our own beliefs and actions. We practice a discipline of gratitude by which we acknowledge our utter dependence on the people and world around us, and we practice an ethic of gratitude by which we accept our obligation to nurture others and the world in return.
Now we will welcome Mary for our time for all ages.
Good morning. Testing. There we go. Hi. Good morning, to everybody in person and everybody on Zoom. So I was inspired for this story by a very sad and tragic event last weekend. So I don't want to go into details of that because this is a children's story. But one of the things after the events at Club Q in Colorado Springs last weekend, one of the things that I heard when I was listening to members of the families of the ones that were lost or injured was they said that Club Q was their place where their family was. So I just want to hold that and hold those folks in your heart. So my question for everybody today is, are you my family? When my kids were little, I used to read them this book, Are You My Mother? I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. I even remember having it as a child. It came in the mail with the book of the month club or whatever. And the story is about a little bird who hatches, and there's no grown-up bird in the nest at all. And so the little bird instinctively knows that he has to go find his family or their family, and goes off in search of their family and asks the cat and the dog, and finally ends up asking a tractor, are you my family? And in the story ends up being with his family or with their family. And I was thinking about that and about what the folks at the survivors of Club Q had said, that they were talking about, are you my family? And when I was a child, I always thought a family was just the people who lived in your house, right? That's your family. And then you have your grandparents and your great grandparents and your aunties and uncles and cousins. But then as I grew up, especially being a UU youth, my idea of family really expanded. It was the other kids in my youth group. It was the other kids I met at con and at camps. It was the adults in my congregation who would come and talk to me and say, you know, what's going on? How are you doing? What is happening? Those are my mentors. Those are my bonus parents and grandparents. And I see that. I've been in UU congregations since I was 12. And I've seen that everywhere I've gone in a UU congregation. So I was thinking, we're a family. This is family here. This is a place where folks come seeking out those kind of connections, because the family we're born into, sometimes we're really blessed with deep connections and sometimes we're not, right? And so being able to seek out folks who accept you for all your wondrous glory, all your unique identities, no matter what pronouns you use, no matter who you are, they just see you for who you are, the most beautiful divine person that you are, without any judgment, just acceptance. That's what family really is. It really is when you accept and love. And that's what those people were talking about, the heartbreak of losing a space where they felt that. And I've also heard some members of our community express heartbreak of losing this space when we were shut down for COVID, and how that family connection wasn't there for them when they needed it. And I hope we're finding it all or reconnecting. So take a deep breath. I want you to think about, where's your family? Is it something biological? Or is it your friends, your best friends? Those could be your family. And could they all be your family? Yes, every single one. Because really, what connects us as family? In the highest aspiration, it is love, right? It is love. So love is what makes a family. So I hope you will all expand your understanding and center in on the love when you ask, are you my family? So thank you for listening to my story today. And now I'm going to do the UU aspiration, and we have a few young folks here to head back into RE. So if you'd like to help me with the UU aspiration, we are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. And we're going to head back to RE with those of us that are here. Thank you.
And we're going. Are you talking to me? No, he was asking. Oh. Okay, I lost my place, Pierre. Oh, we will go ahead and do from the teal hymnal. The words will be projected, return again. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one, didn't I? I did, I skipped one, I'm sorry. Thank you, it's 3:18, I apologize. Now I get all discombobulated when there's extra people up here. Welcome, Pierre, and lead us in 3:18 in the grade. Please stand if you're able. If not, feel free to sit.
Okay, now it is.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show the world a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our heart and points us on our way. us free.
Thank you. Be seated. So it's time for our offering. If Summit is a valued community in your life, please support us by making an offering today. Our Zoomers are invited to contribute to our virtual plate. The link can be found in the chat box and it will take you directly to the donation location. And as always, we acknowledge our committed pledgers. They help us keep our doors open. And now we will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude.
Good morning. I'm going to play Let All Things Now Living, which is really a Welsh tune, the Ash Grove, arranged by Mark Hayes.
Thank you, Karen. And now let's welcome Robin Mitchell back to our pulpit.
I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. On this Thanksgiving weekend, it somehow feels right to drive down here and spend time with my extended religious family. Getting together with family is one of the big themes of Thanksgiving. It's the busiest travel time of the year. And in the weeks before, you always start seeing news articles about how to survive Thanksgiving dinner with your difficult relatives, your hateful in-laws, or the QAnon uncle who's always forwarding you emails with the "Let's go Brandon" memes. And the theme of these articles is always about how to find a healthy way to keep the peace and restore our connections, Because at Thanksgiving, we remember that the love of family transcends our personal or ideological differences. And this is a good lesson for me to ponder, because it helps me understand something that's confused me as long as I've been a UU. The respect and deference that we give to other religions. Our hymnals have sometimes altered songs from other faith traditions. Our ministers stand with clergy from other faiths at demonstrations and protests. I've heard my ministers quote from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and from Christian theologians. The UUA's statement of our sources includes wisdom from the world's religions, and specifically Jewish and Christian teachings. And I keep wondering, why? How is it that we accord other religions this kind of respect and authority when we don't accept their core beliefs? How can we do this and still be true both to our own faith and to our understanding of theirs? Well, those articles about keeping the peace at Thanksgiving give one answer. We are all one big religious family. So we stand with other religions because that's what family does. And we listen respectfully to their stories because they're our family stories too. And what is it that makes us family? First of all, we're all members of the same species. Like them, UUism is a religion, and this fellowship is a religious community. This is not something that UUs have always acknowledged. My home fellowship has a long tradition of secular humanism. And back when I was treasurer, our then minister once gave a passionate sermon about how UUism wasn't a religion at all. And since I was the person responsible for our religious tax exemption, I ran up to her afterwards and said, "Don't ever say that ever again, ever." But there have been good reasons for that ambivalence. Some of us have come here some of us have come here for refuge after unsatisfying or even abusive experiences with other religions, or after seeing some of the ugly political uses of religion and have perhaps reacted a little too broadly. And the dictionary doesn't help things any. One definition says that religion is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, especially when considered as the creation of a superhuman agency. That certainly doesn't sound like us, but it's a culturally blinkered definition that also doesn't sound like Buddhism or Taoism or any other religion that doesn't follow the Western tradition of God worshiping. But our reading from All Souls Church today suggests another definition. Everything in it talks about what we do together, not what we believe together. It says that we, like people of other religions, have chosen to be in a community that supports our spiritual growth through rituals, stories, teaching, and shared experience. And we, in turn, contribute to that community because we believe in extending that same support to other people and in making the fruits of our growth manifest in the world. Although we UUs do this in our own unique way, it's the same thing all those other religions are also doing. This definition distinguishes not so much between religious people and atheists, as most definitions do, but between religious people and individualists. I think the current catchphrase is spiritual but not religious. And honestly, it must be a wonderful thing. I mean, just imagine no committee meetings, no pledge drives, no emails asking you to contribute something to the fundraising auction. It must be wonderful. But it's also a limited and transient thing. You may improve your own life and inspire people around you, but you're not building any institutions that will take that inspiration out into the world and on into future generations. And we are all together this morning rather than being off alone meditating or doing yoga, because we all recognize this at some level. And we're here this morning, physically or virtually, on this sacred site because your founders almost 35 years ago aimed at more than just their own personal growth. They committed themselves to the hard work of building a religious community, a community that was here waiting for you when you needed it. And if this fellowship is still here 35 years from now, still inspiring its members and still working for justice in the larger community, it will be because those of you here today have made that same commitment. This is a noble calling, and we should be proud of belonging to the family of religions, not apologetic or conflicted about it. But if being in the same species makes it possible to be family, it is lineage that makes it reality. And here again, we are family. It is a historical fact that both Unitarianism and Universalism developed within Christianity, which itself developed from Judaism. But the really important thing is that while we have outgrown the doctrines of our Judeo-Christian origins, we were never forced to disown them. When they became too limiting for us, we moved beyond them, just as any healthy child eventually outgrows her room in her parents' house and moves to her own place, which she furnishes according to her own tastes. She does this not because her parents failed her, but because they succeeded in rearing a capable, independent adult. And we chose to grow beyond the Christian story, not because it ever failed us, but because it inspired us to wider horizons. What we now consider our unique values, our love of reason, our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all humankind, our passion for justice, are all things we inherited from our Christian parents. Almost 200 years ago, the Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing gave a famous sermon called Unitarian Christianity, where he spoke about exactly these things. He said there was no book that demanded a more frequent exercise of reason than the Bible, and criticized his Orthodox brethren who, as he said, despite Christ's warnings, invented creeds for the church and expelled people living virtuous lives for the crime of thinking for themselves. That was anathema to him just as much as it is to us today. As a Unitarian Christian, he rejected the idea that our nature is inherently sinful, that we require God's salvation. In words that a UU might speak today, except perhaps for their sexism, he said, "We believe that all virtue has its foundation in the moral nature of man, that is, in conscience or his sense of duty. Indeed, God had to prove himself to us as much as we to God." Channing said, "We cannot bow before a being, however great, who rules tyrannically. We respect nothing but excellence, whether on earth or in heaven. We venerate not the loftiness of God's throne, but the equity and goodness on which it is established." We don't talk so much about God these days, but we use almost exactly those words with human institutions. From our nation's government to our financial system to the institution of marriage, we judge them not by their age or their power, but by the equity and goodness on which they were established and which they continue to embody, and we call them to account when they fall short. After 200 years, we're still true to our parents' values. We often don't see this, in part because some Christians make us not want to see any relationship with them. but also because no one wants to admit that their parents were right about anything. That's a natural reaction, but it's not the most mature, and it estranges us from the people who shaped our values. So when we do read from the Bible, or quote Christian theologians, or stand with Christians at anti-racism demonstrations, or work with them at the Interfaith Shelter Network, I think it's a healthy sign that we're secure enough to acknowledge our family inheritance. And not just Christians. While it's a historical fact that UUism arose out of Christianity, it's also something of a historical accident. I believe that we could just as easily have come from the liberal wings of any of the world's great religions, for our core values have arisen independently in all of them. If Christianity is our parent and Judaism our grandparent, then Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism are our aunts and uncles. If we had been born to them, we would be different, but we'd still share the family features. After Christianity and Judaism, our next closest relative would be Islam, the third of the Abrahamic faiths. Islam has been passionate about social justice and equity in human relations from the beginning, and they've been famously open to science and reason, giving us our number system and our word for algebra. They foreshadowed our religious openness. Unlike the Bible, the Quran explicitly says that there can be no compulsion in religion. And in the year 622, the Prophet Muhammad made the first known official proclamation of religious tolerance in history, almost 1,000 years before anything similar appeared in the West. We definitely could have descended from them. And if there was a modern liberal branch of Islam flourishing in the world today, then I think we would very much enjoy working with them. As the Buddhists in this congregation can attest, we also could have originated from the Eastern religions. We might look a little different than we do today, but that could be a good thing. Our first principle might be more noble if it spoke of the inherent worth and dignity of every sentient being instead of just every person. We certainly could have inherited our commitment to reasoned inquiry from them. The Buddha said it was the only reliable way to find truth. And the current Dalai Lama has said that if science ever showed some Buddhist precepts to be wrong, then Buddhism would have to change its teaching to accommodate the new knowledge. And their emphasis on compassion as the fundamental basis of relationship would both inspire our commitment to social justice and perhaps soften its occasional partisan edges. But it's not enough to be related by lineage, either directly or indirectly. I know that many people here have grown up in dysfunctional or even abusive families. And you know better than I do that not all family is welcome at the table. If the Taliban or the Christian nationalists in our country are family, they're the abusive ex-spouse we had to take out a restraining order against. We can hope for their healing and eventual reconciliation, but in the meantime, we need to speak out against the harm they are doing precisely because they are family and our family honor is at stake. But even they can be of service to us by pointing out the dangers that tend to run in our family tree. If half of your relatives were alcoholic, or if several women in your family all came down with breast cancer, you'd realize that your genetic makeup might have some dangers and you'd start watching yourself carefully. And if so many in our religious family seem prone to smug self-righteousness, we might start watching ourselves for signs of the same disease. For example, how do we talk about people who disagree with us about immigration or abortion or LGBTQ rights? How quick are we to assume that our positions come from exalted values, but theirs come from hate, fear, and bigotry. We should not be too quick to look away from the mirror our wayward cousins hold up to us. In the end, the true measure of family is love and shared values. And if some in our family dishonor these things, many others remind us of what is so special about our religious family. A few years ago, the conservative blogger Andrew Sullivan wrote about what he saw as the core values of Christianity. In his words, they are to not simply love one another, but love your enemy and forgive those who harm you. Give up all material wealth. Above all, give up power over others, because power, if it is to be effective, ultimately requires the threat of violence, and violence is incompatible with the total acceptance and love of all other human beings that is at the sacred heart of Jesus' teachings. Above all, give up power over others. Where else but in our family will you hear those words spoken? Not in the worlds of business or politics or international relations, where power and dominance are prized. But these counterculture values that Andrew celebrates, forgiveness, radical love and acceptance, generosity, nonviolence, have arisen all through our family tree, and you'll hear them being taught in churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, and fellowships every week. And not just taught. The thing that absolutely takes my breath away about our religious family, the thing that makes me love them so much, is that people come to hear those words, to be challenged to live them in their own lives. Just like us, people voluntarily come to their religious communities all around the world to have their certainties challenged, to hear things that are radically different from what everything else in society is telling them. Things that, if they take root in their lives, will cause them no end of trouble and lead them on journeys whose ends they cannot imagine. The writer Annie Dillard once said, "It is madness to wear ladies' hats to church. We should all be wearing crash helmets." And I think this is what she was talking about. I wonder if Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Mother Teresa had any idea what they were in for the first time they sat down and listened to our family stories. Thinking about these people, the famous ones and all the others, makes me wonder if I had my original question backwards. Maybe we shouldn't be asking whether these people are worthy of being in our family, but whether we're doing everything we can to be worthy members of theirs. I hope that we are constantly rededicating ourselves to our shared values, so that when people of other faiths see us in action, or visit us in worship, or hear us talk among ourselves, they not only say, "Oh, these people are family," but also, "Oh, they're from the good side of the family." May that truly be so.
Thank you, Robin. Now Pierre will lead us in the hymn that I lied to you about earlier that we were going to do, because we're going to do it now. It's in the teal hymnal, but the words will be projected. Return again.
Return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return what you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul.
Thank you, Pierre. And now Robin will read the closing words while I extinguish the chalice.
The lifelong goal to wish for compassion, to pray for courage, to experience doubt, to bear sorrow, to strive for sureness. All these qualities for which each of us should be grateful. But to feel a genuine fellowship for the whole human family, to act so that our empathy is evident wherever we go, that's the object. That's the lifelong goal.
So feel free to stand and hold hands or not for our closing circle song. Thank you, everyone. Now just give us a few minutes to get the mic set up and we'll have our community gathering. Those of you who would